Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from Maleficent-World. 514. AITA for cutting ties with my gold digger female best friend, who was using me to extract money for her expenses. My ex-best friend? I'll call her April, for the sake of the post. And I have been friends since our middle year in high school. For some backstory, we met when we were 14 or 15, and later became best friends, and we were inseparable around the age 15 or 16. We were as close as two platonic people could be. We'd spend weeks at each other's house, call each other constantly, we'd walk together, we'd go out together. It was rare to see us apart. I even got her a job at my former workplace as a teenager, so we could be together there as well. Things were perfect between us. Adult life had been setting in with us, both constantly working and not being able to hang out as often, but we were still close. But everything came crashing down 4 months ago. For context, I was driving home from work one evening when she called me, asking if I wanted to go out for ice cream. I was exhausted as I used to work 14-hour shifts, however. I hadn't seen her in a while and didn't want to miss out on an opportunity to catch up. I went home, got ready, and she came to pick me up, the whole car ride. She was just giving me little life updates, and I was enjoying being around her again. Everything was fine, until she drove me home that night. On the way, she was telling me about this guy she was talking to, and has liked for a while now, and how she'd asked him on a date for the next day, and he agreed. I was super happy for her, and encouraged her to let me know how everything went. Over the next few days, we didn't speak much since she was busy for work. But I sent her a message on the night of the date, as it was late, and I expected it to be over so I could hear all about it. She replied straight away, telling me he cancelled and now isn't responding to her, which was upsetting, and I felt terrible. I tried to comfort her, but she clearly wasn't in any mood to talk, so I left her alone. I didn't hear from her for a few days, so I proceeded to message her just saying I loved her, and I hoped all was well. She just left me on read. I continued to message, asking how she was for the rest of September, yet I was left undelivered and opened continuously for a month. Like any person I'd imagine, I got pretty annoyed, and I was very upset with her about this. I tried to have a talk with her about how I felt, but I was completely blown off. My first big message to her, which may have prompted her to get mad at me, which I'll paste down below, but cut some personal details out, was, I understand you ghost people and everything, but at this point you're just making a joke out of me. You don't answer any of my texts, nor read them, or we'll make plans to spend time together, and you say you'll let me know, and never do it, just do make sense. I've cut out a bit, but you understand the gist of it. Her response was, I don't want to have this conversation right now. Which just enraged me, and I hate to say it, but I really disliked her in that moment. I decided to wait a few weeks to cool off, and hopefully this time she would be willing to talk again, yet it was another failed attempt. We haven't spoken since November yet. Just thinking about it gets me upset and so confused. I've sent her another message this afternoon, but I haven't gotten a response. I'll paste that here as well. Please, I just want you to read this, and if you can try to make an effort, just one sentence to answer if you can. I just want to know what's gone wrong because all I know is you were blown off your date and then you ignore me for months. I've tried so many times to talk to you, but you refuse. You fully replaced me, and I don't understand why. You've told me over and over again that you're going through a lot and don't want to talk yet. Every time you've told me that you're always out with someone, I'm not doubting that you're going through something. I've always supported you no matter what. It's just really contradicting on what you say. I don't want you to make excuses to me. I would rather you straight up tell me that I've done something and you don't want to talk to me. It's been literal months of you ignoring me. It sounds really bad to say this, but I truly think it's selfish on what you're doing, not who you are as a person, but the actions you've done to me. I don't understand what I've done to get this amount of animosity from you. Again, I've cut a few details out, but that's the main idea. I'm currently cuddled up with my cat, waiting for a response. I've spoken to my boyfriend and a couple of mutual friends, and they've all come to the conclusion that she's being unfair, and I should just stop wasting energy on it. But it truly boggles me. Any advice is appreciated, or some outside perspective. Thank you. Update. Okay, this update came a lot quicker than I thought, and I would like to just apologize for not putting some important background information beforehand. This is all very new to me. But in case you haven't read the comments of my replies, I have been financially supporting April for years. But I've taken the advice of a few commenters and cancelled my card. I should receive one in a few days. I've also stopped my direct deposit to her account for her apartment bills. Again, per some commenters' advice, I've stopped trying to get in contact. However, I think some of you were right, as she's now continuously messaging me about cancelling my card, as she's out with friends and was planning to use it and didn't bring her own card. I won't post here what she's messaged me, as it's really awful, and will probably violate the guidelines of Reddit. I've also found out from mutual friends that she's going around speaking badly of me to some people she's out with now, and how I now refuse to help her with her bills, etc. Like I was expected to. I'm not really sure what to take from this situation, but I am now being spammed with calls from her as well. I understand a lot of people have seen me as the asshole. I will be deleting this post and account very soon, considering the majority of the comments were just calling me crazy and obsessive, which wasn't very nice. But I hope someone reads this update and can now understand the full situation. And I'm sorry if this isn't the update you wanted, nor cared about. But thank you everyone for your help anyway. OP is not an AH for distancing himself from his selfish friend. OP's ex-best friend is an AH for being in friendship with OP for financial gains. It is the worst type of being selfish. In this situation, OP's decision to stop financial support for her is 100% valid. As for scores, I would rate OP's ex-friend 2.5 out of 5 and OP 0 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from _ladies_man_217. AITA. For not wanting to reconnect with my family after abandoning them. My mother and father seem to have the perfect relationship. Married for 19 to 20 years and 4 kids with the same parents, ECT. Well, I'm the oldest, 18M, and we lost the youngest. My mom had all boys BTW. He was born with many health issues, and we were told he wouldn't make it past a few months. He lived to be 4. Those 4 years, my parents focused primarily on him though. I'm not mad, and I understand, but also me and my other 2 brothers felt neglected majority of the time. The only time we got any attention was when we acted out, did something bad, or our grandparents would say something about it. Fast forwards to 2017 when we lost him. Our parents acknowledged they had neglected us and apologized and said they were going to make up for it. But it never happened. Our dad is usually very quiet, always kept his issues private and had a bad temper. But it only got worse and worse. My mom was usually very cheery, but she grew into a depressed slump and decided to stay there and never try and get out. Over the years, I noticed my mom was very manipulative and petty when she didn't get her way. I didn't think much of it till about recently. I'd say 2020-ish. She'd always gloat about how she did this behind her parents' back and tell me about how she was such a rebel. And keep in mind my grandparents, her parents are super religious and old-fashioned. But she would jump on me for the smallest things and point out every little mistake I did and tell me that I need to get over it because she raised boys and not little girls. She also took away our allowances because my brothers never did their chores, and then told us our allowance was having beds and a roof, and if that wasn't enough, we could leave. She also said we didn't need money and all we had to do was ask and they'd get it for us. Anytime we asked for anything, she called us ungrateful and spoiled. She was also very overbearing. One time I asked if I could go hunting with my buddy on his land. The plot was 2 miles away from their house with cameras everywhere. She said no because what if I get attacked in the deer blind? A better example is when I asked to go to the homecoming game and she said yes, then found the tiniest reason to not let me go and ground me, and then make a huge story about the place getting shot up. I honestly think I might have spilled some sweet tea by accident. I don't remember fully. Getting more recent and closer to the end. Sorry. When I learned to drive and got my first truck, she told me I'd be paying the insurance and the gas, so for when she said I couldn't go do something with the truck, I could say that I'm paying those 2 things and I can do as I please with it. I thought this was very reasonable, but it didn't happen like that. She'd say that it's in my dad's name, and it was his truck, not mine, and I could suck it up. She also forced everyone to download Life 360 and makes us turn the location on 24/7, even my dad. But she kept hers off all the time. And when I said something about it, she'd respond with, "I'm your mother. You don't get to ask me those questions, it's none of your business." This was also around the time me and my fiancé got together. Our first date, my mom and dad followed me to her house, but sat at the gas station across the highway, and then followed us into town to the movies. She timed the movie, and then followed us to Sonic McDonald's, and then got so pissed off, she went to my grandparents', which funny enough, we were on our way there too. I take her home, and then my mom walks in even more pissed, because I passed her house on purpose for like 2.5 miles, just to get some more time together. She sits down and tells me I wasn't used to driving a stick shift truck in town, and that I put my life in danger because I didn't do what she said. My grandfather taught me to drive this when I was 12, and I had been making small trash runs with it since then. I was very experienced with that truck. Anyway, from that point on, I could tell my mom was pissed because she was getting replaced, and told me that's why she doesn't like her and that I stick up for her and she's jealous. She grew on my mom after 6 months, and then my mom found out we were sleeping together. We were 16 and 17 at that point, and then my mom separated us for 4 weeks. No contact or anything. She also tells me about how she wrecked her '94 Camaro the same night her and my dad slept together the first time. There's a 6-year age gap BTW, and she just told her parents after 20-something years. And then says since I'm a young white male, and she's mixed that if she cries, then I will be in serious trouble. My mom continues to find more and more reasons to not like her after the fact, and pushes her away. She slept in one Sunday, and didn't wake up in time for church, and my mom said if she can't be an adult and wake up on time, then I couldn't go to her house on Sundays. Church was a newer thing to her, because her mother wasn't religious. Her stepmother was Catholic, 'cause she grew up in New Orleans but doesn't continue in it anymore. That caused my girlfriend to lose her shit, and they had a huge fight. My mom said some very hurtful things about her and her mom's, and got mad at her when she had an issue about it. Then her mom said she's not to have any contact with her daughter, and my mom said if she couldn't have contact with her, then me and my girlfriend couldn't have contact with one another, because it was her phones I was using, and on her phone bill, and I was under her roof. That apparently she makes the money for. She doesn't. She hasn't worked since 08. I think 4 or 5 months past of us have a very low-profile relationship, and I saved up for a new truck and had 4 jobs over the summer. I packed all my stuff like the 3rd day into the summer. I packed a few things that night, then the rest in the morning, and went to my first job. They stayed out of my room all day, thankfully, and then I stopped by to grab a few final items, then went to my second job and never returned home. My mom called my work, asking what was going on. I said I made my choice and I'm leaving and won't be returning home ever. I still saw my dad over the summer because my main day job was an internship at his work. We had little to no contact the first few days, but then slowly started back to normal. I really hate that I hurt him so bad, cause it was obvious he favored me over the other two and expected more of me. When I told him why I left and what I thought about my mom, he said he agreed that she was controlling, immature, manipulate, and many other things, but because I left and caused her to be so pissed that the situation is my fault, no one else's, and that it won't change unless I fix it. He also told me that he will not answer my calls, text, nothing, until I fix things with her. He'd also say he can't believe I'd do this to my family. I tried having a few sit-downs and talking to them, but my mom just accused my fiancé of things that didn't happen and were never said, and same with me. She was trying to manipulate. She always had to have my brothers there to witness, and she has already turned them against me and tried doing the same with my baby cousin, who we just adopted after she lost her mother. I explained to my grandparents, my mother parents, what happened and my whole side of the story, and they agreed with me and said that's not their daughter, and they definitely didn't raise her that way. They have tried to fix things, and I really do love that about them, but it always ended with my mom screaming and claiming the devil had won. So far, I've had almost no contact with them. My dad shakes my hand like a businessman and says he can't tell me he loves me or my mother will get upset with him. I'm living with my grandparents and slowly, very slowly, finally getting back on my feet. Things aren't perfect, but I'm happy where I'm at, and have learned that to you can't find happiness where you're at, then you won't be happy anywhere. I want to reconnect with them, but I'm not sure, and I'm scared too. OP is not an AH for cutting ties with her parents, and he is justified in feeling hesitant to reconnect with his parents, especially given their toxic behavior in the past. There is nothing wrong in reconnecting, but going in a close relationship might make things complicated for OP. The keeping a reasonable distance from such toxic parents would be a sustainable approach. As for scores, I would rate OP's parents 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AA scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from kindly_preference 819. AITA for breaking up with my boyfriend over his low self-esteem? I, 33F, had been dating my now ex, BJ, 31M, for about a year. For some background, he was the best friend of my friend, Eve, 33F, his fiancé, Demetrius, 35M. We met while I was helping her move into BJ and Demetrius's house. Eve is a nail tech, and Demetrius is a professional dancer. They were both more than able to pay off their parts of the living expenses. This is important. BJ helped me bring some of her heavier boxes in. He was really attractive, and I'm not going to turn down a fine man helping me, LOL. We chatted and ended up clicking. I asked her to give him my number, and the rest was history. I found out after several dates he was an aspiring model who moved to our city about 3 years ago, advance his career. Think Phoenix from Atlanta. I asked him how he was able to afford his part of the rent, which he quickly corrected as his mortgage, off of an aspiring model's salary, and he said some of his posts had gone viral, and he was doing spreads for magazines like Essence. I don't read magazines, so I took him at his word and was impressed. We keep going out, and soon enough, we've gotten to the stage where I start asking Eves about double dates. We're staying up on the phone. I'm staying the night at their house. As we get closer, he starts opening up to me about certain things in his past, specifically what it was like first starting out in our city. I'm thinking this is new ground in our relationship, and I can't help but feel thankful in a way. I know it sounds dumb, and I know we're moving fast, but dating in my early 30s is awkward, especially in my area. So I clung on to BJ once I started feeling that safety with him. In retrospect, that was thirsty, but I was catching real feelings. There are little things he does that make me question him. For one, I'm a full-time healthcare worker and part-time fashion influencer. I do it for fun and don't plan on making it a career anytime soon. I don't even have enough of a following to sustain myself if I wanted to. BJ has tried to convince me multiple times to quit my job and become an influencer full-time. I ask him why, and he just says it'd be right for me. He also has little stints where he won't want to use birth control. Every couple of months, he'll decide we should try. All of it's odd. I keep brushing it off though, because generally he's a great guy. I just won't sleep with him. I'll just tell him I'm keeping my job, the like. Now, about 4 months ago, Eves and Demetrius got engaged. She and I have grown closer over the past year, so I am over the moon. We start prepping for the wedding instantly. You would have thought it was in a week how we were acting. BJ does not seem as excited. He's happy, but not ecstatic like someone watching their best friend of 3 years getting married would be. A month afterward, he's driving home after we left their house. All of a sudden, eyes still on the road, he asks if I want to get married. I ask him if this is a hypothetical question. He says no. I ask him why he's proposing right now. He gives a vague answer about it being that time in his life, and how it's a new step he wants to take. I ask him if this is because of Eves and Demetrius, and he says no, seeming almost offended that I would ask. It's going to sound blunt, and maybe I'm able to be this blunt because it's over, but even if I had wanted marriage at that point, I couldn't see him being fully committed to it because he's so inherently self-centered. BJ is undoubtedly capable of loving, and I do or did think he loves me, but he's also one of those people where they'll put everything, feelings, whims, even well-being, aside from that one main goal. And BJ's was achieving his dream of superstardom. I don't tell him all of this, of course, but I do tell him I can't accept his whatever this was. The car ride home is awkward, and so is the next week, and the next week, and the week after that. We end up at a standstill. We're not broken up, but we're not close like we were before. In early November, I tried inviting him over so we could work things out. We slept together, but there was no real resolution. This is where we get to my current dilemma. I want to say 2 weeks ago, Eves and Demetrius break up. According to her, BJ became more passive-aggressive towards them both after the proposal, and every time she brought it up to Demetrius, he would defend him. This led to lingering feelings about him bending to BJ resurfacing. She said something nasty, her words, about their financial situation, and their engagement imploded. She doesn't tell me what that means. Eve was renting an apartment before moving in with them and needed time to find a new one. I offered to have her move in with me, and now we're sharing a room. Week after she moves in, I start feeling sick. I'm thinking it might be PMS, then I realize I haven't had my period in a while. I go to the corner store and take a pregnancy test in the bathroom. It's positive. I'm freaking out because I don't even know what terms BJ and I are on. He could have a whole new girlfriend, and I wouldn't even know. I keep telling myself not to stress because it's bad for the baby, but that makes me stress worse. Eves is also stressed. In the days after moving in, she becomes more and more jaded towards her ex. Little things about their relationship end up trickling out, including how protective he is of BJ. I always ask her to expand on it, but it's like she flips a switch and drops it. I come back from my night shift, and I hear her arguing with Demetrius on the phone. She hangs up, storms into the kitchen, and starts to rant about him like always. Except this time, the longer she goes on, the angrier she gets, and she ends up finally telling me about him, BJ, and the truth. Now, when I said, and thought, BJ kept his appearance up, I meant him wearing lip balm, oiling his beard, getting pedicures. Normal things a man does to make sure he looks good. Apparently, he did not just do this. When he first moved into the city, he would couch hop with people he befriended, steal their money, and use it to get extreme amounts of surgery. When I say extreme, I'm not being prudish. I don't mean, like, Botox or a nose job. He is completely, unequivocally, unrecognizable from 3 years ago. He and Demetrius met because Demetrius was his personal trainer, paid through other people's savings. BJ threatened throughout their friendship if he ever told others what he looked like before his rejuvenation. He would implicate him for the robberies. She didn't call them robberies. And from there, I'm guessing Demetrius developed some sort of Stockholm syndrome. Hearing this, you probably won't be surprised to hear he lied to me about pretty much everything else. He wasn't some up-and-coming model. He posted on an Instagram with botted followers. All of the covers and spreads he posted were edited by someone off of Fiverr or something. He didn't own the house and let Eves and Demetrius stay. Demetrius used the money from his days as a personal trainer to buy it and moved BJ in because they were friends. The financial situation was he and Eve paying for all of the living expenses. BJ contributed nothing. His name isn't even on the deed. He didn't meet his new post-robbing kind people friends from art galleries or industry functions or whatever other fancy event he fabricated. They were all people who got him to his current appearance. His second closest friend, right behind Demetrius, was one of his former surgeons. His name isn't even his name. If I'm calling him BJ, let's say he told me it stood for Bryce James. It was something outlandish like Bojangles. Eves herself didn't even know any of this until the last few weeks, when BJ was particularly nasty towards her, and she couldn't seem to understand why Demetrius was so relaxed. They went back and forth until he finally snapped and exposed everything. I'm speechless. I don't even know how I stood up as long as I did. I feel violated, horribly, horribly violated. A year of my life was wasted on the idea of a concept of a person. Time I can never get back was spent on a man whose name I don't even know. And not to say I chose to keep my baby because their dad's hot, but I'm not even sure what our baby's going to look like now. I also have this queasy feeling about those conversations around my job. Was he trying to get me to quit so he could be half of some fancy couple? Just so he could say he was some big model with this big influencer girlfriend? And did he propose because he thought it would look good at this point in his career to be a family man? Is that why he pushed for kids? If he wants to be a different person, fine. But it feels like I was robbed of every decision. I call BJ over the next day. I can barely look at him. It's barely any him, anyway. I scream, I yell. I tear into him so he can feel even 1% of the hurt that I did. He tries to explain what his reasoning. At no point does he apologize for anything. I keep yelling at him. He says, talking to me is tiring and goes to leave. BJ slams the door off of its hinges, and that sends me over the edge. I chase him back to his, probably Demetrius' truck, and yell insults at him as he gets in. Eve pulls me inside and tries to calm me down. I started posting on Instagram, trying to expose him. He doesn't have a real following, so it kind of goes nowhere. I blocked his number. I'm thinking of filing for a temporary restraining order so he can't come near me. I never want to see him ever again. I certainly don't want him around my child. The pushback I've received from our group is insane. Our mutual friends think I'm cruel for treating him how I am. I think they're on his side because he paid their bills for years. But what do I know? The only person who's been able to comfort me is Eve. Because even if she didn't experience the extent of what I did, she knows what it's like to deal with them. Am I the for breaking up with my boyfriend over his self-esteem? OP is not an AH for breaking up with her boyfriend who lied about every aspect of life. OP's decision is perfect for her and her child's well-being. So, OP is not an AH for breaking up with her boyfriend, and I would rate her 0 and OP's boyfriend 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Mistress Jamelia. My girlfriend joined a against with her friend and her husband. What should I do? My ex-girlfriend, 27F, and I, 29M, had been together for just over a year. I broke up with her last week after yet another situation where her inability to stand up for herself crossed a serious line. The first red flag happened 5 months ago. She came to my apartment after a night out with her friends and confessed tearfully that she had made out with another guy. Her excuse? Her friends were pressuring her to loosen up and live a little, and she didn't want to look uptight in front of them. I was furious, but decided to forgive her because she was honest and apologized immediately. However, I told her that this wasn't okay, and we agreed that she wouldn't go out drinking with those friends again, since they clearly didn't respect her boundaries or mine. Fast forward to last week. She told me she was taking a mental health day and would be hanging out with friends. What she didn't mention was that she was heading to a cabin in a small town with those same friends. I found out when she texted me after the fact, casually saying she'd be back later that evening. This was frustrating enough. I don't think it's unreasonable to want a heads up about a trip, especially with friends I've already expressed concerns about. When she came over the next day, I pressed her about what happened. She initially said it was just a relaxing day with the girls, but something about her tone felt off. I kept asking, and after 3 days of her denying that anything unusual happened, she finally broke down and admitted the truth. One of her friends had been pressuring her for weeks to join a with her and her husband. My ex claimed she'd been saying no repeatedly, but eventually gave in to the pressure and went to the cabin with them. She swore that nothing happened and that they didn't go all the way. But at that point, it didn't matter to me. I told her the relationship was over. I explained that while I understood feeling pressured, going to the cabin was her choice. Staying friends with people who constantly push her to violate her own boundaries and mine was her choice. I also told her she needed to seriously think about why she surrounds herself with people who bring out the worst in her. She cried and accused me of blaming her for something she didn't have control over. I told her she absolutely had control unless they dragged her to the cabin at gunpoint. Her decisions were her own. Now her brother is texting me, saying I'm being too harsh, and that I should be helping her work through her issues instead of walking away. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's my responsibility to stay in a relationship where my trust and boundaries are repeatedly disregarded. So, AITA for ending things. OP is not an AH for setting clear boundaries after her girlfriend repeated breach of trust. A relationship, particularly the romantic one, is solely based on trust, and if there is no trust, there is no point in being in such a relation. OP's decision to break up with his girlfriend is 100% justified. In this scenario, OP's ex-girlfriend is an AH, and I would rate her 4 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump on to the next story from 1. Keep thinking. AITA for refusing to hook up with someone a second time? The first time we met was great. Matched on a dating app, she was passing through my city and decided to have dinner. I had 0 expectations as she was leaving the city soon, and it turns out we had good chemistry. We went to get drinks after dinner, and we randomly came across a club, and it had a good vibe. Never know about this place before. There was a long lineup, but we thought it was worth the wait. After we went in, the atmosphere was great. We got tipsy, danced, and made out a lot. Great first date. She was going to conferences across several cities, so we decided to meet again a week later at one of those cities, which was 4 HRs away from my city. So, I drove to meet for the second date. She wanted to do something fun, so we went clubbing again. It was such a great time. We drank and danced a lot like last time. After that, we went back to her hotel. We were both hammered and borderline drunk. We wanted to hook up. We tried all night till I didn't have whiskey anymore. Wasn't the best, But in the moment, it was nice. The next day, she had to leave. We said our goodbyes and told each other what we had was really nice and fun. It honestly felt like we would not see each other again. About 6 months later, she messages me and asks me if I want to meet up again if she comes back to my city. FYI, she lives about 5 hours away, by plane. She said she really liked my city and that she wanted to spend more time there to visit. At this point, I was like, sure, I'll be down to meet up and help you explore the city. Though we haven't kept in touch since we last met, she asked me if I could stay at my place and I did not want to decline straight away. But I kind of knew that she would want to hook up again by implying that she wanted to stay at my place. I told her that it would be better to find a hotel, as it would be more convenient for her, as I lived in the outskirts of the city. I wasn't really feeling like I wanted to hook up again, because I was focusing on other things, but I kept it as a possibility, but just felt more comfortable if we didn't stay together, as then it would be an obligation to host her, etc. Fast forward, she arrives, and I gave her a ride from the airport to the hotel, as I thought it would be a nice gesture, and also I was free that day. We grabbed a quick dinner, and then she went back to her hotel as she was tired. After I dropped her off, she told me to wait, and she gave me a key card to her room. I was a bit surprised by that, because that totally implied she wanted to hook up. I left, and I was intrigued. I tried not to think of it too much, and just went with the flow. We hung out the next day for a hike, and had a late lunch after. We decided to hang out again before she leaves. She insisted to go clubbing again. At this point, I kinda knew what was happening. She wanted to do the same thing as last time. So we went clubbing, and that night I was just not feeling the vibe we had before. I drove because I live far from downtown, so I didn't go hard on drinking, and she also didn't drink much. While dancing, our vibe was completely different. I didn't even want to kiss her. After clubbing, she seemed very excited and asked me if I want to chill. Her eyes were basically saying, "Let's go back to the hotel and have a great night before she leaves." I kinda froze, and I didn't have the courage to tell her I didn't want to. I just told her I have to leave early and go home. Her hotel was close by, so we just walked back. We said goodbye and wished each other the best. That was it. I just left her and went home, and I felt terrible. Because if I was in her place, I would be so disappointed. I still think of it now and feel bad about it, because she flew all the way. Even though she explored the city by herself most of the time, as I was working the other days, we didn't meet. But she knew about my schedule that prior, of course. It must have been kinda anticlimactic for her, especially on the last day. I always keep thinking about it and think AITA because I refused the second time. OP is not an AH for refusing to stay with his online friend for the night. There is nothing wrong in losing interest in someone, especially when you are honest and transparent about it. OPs doesn't need to feel guilty. He did nothing wrong here. Let's now jump onto the next story from confident_piano_2897. AITA for calling out my mother's bad parenting. 14. M. Sometimes I wonder if our family was ever normal, or if I was just too young to notice the cracks before they split wide open. Dad's drinking was bad enough. It started with a beer here and there after work, but before long, the fridge was always stocked with six-packs, and he smelled like a brewery even in the mornings. He'd make promises. "I'll quit after this weekend," or "I'll go to a meeting." But nothing ever changed. He'd just sit on the couch, yelling at the TV, like all of his anger at the world could somehow fix what was broken. It didn't fix anything. It just made me afraid of him. But if Dad was a mess, Mom wasn't exactly winning any prizes either. She didn't even wait for him to get better. She found Nathan. I still remember the first time I saw him, standing in our kitchen like he belonged there, all smug and acting like he was some kind of upgrade. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him to get out. But what was the point? Mom wasn't even trying to hide it. She'd smile and laugh at his stupid jokes like we weren't all falling apart right in front of her. And when Dad found out, well, that was the loudest fight I've ever heard. Plate smashing, door slamming, and words I didn't even know adults said. Now I'm stuck in the middle. Mom tries to act like Nathan's her new start, but it feels like she traded one disaster for another. And Dad? He's worse than ever. He drinks to forget about her. And honestly, I don't even know why he cares so much. She's the one who destroyed us. But somehow, I'm the one picking up the pieces, trying to keep them both from completely losing it. I hate what they've turned me into. A liar, a peacemaker, Someone who pretends everything's fine when it's not. My friends don't get it. They don't have to go home and wonder if their dad will even remember what he said the night before, or if their mom will be too busy with her new life to even notice they exist. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted a family that didn't suck. But now, it's like I'm stuck with 2 broken parents and no one who actually cares about fixing me. One night, when it all felt like too much to hold inside, I wrote Mom a letter. I didn't know if I'd ever give it to her, but I needed to get it out. I told her how much she'd hurt me, how watching her sneak around with Nathan made me feel like I didn't matter. I told her how I wake up some days with this heaviness in my chest, like I can't breathe, and how it's hard to trust anyone when the person who's supposed to love you most chooses someone else. You gave me trauma, Mom, I wrote. You made me afraid to get close to anyone because I keep thinking they'll leave, just like you left Dad, just like you're leaving me behind. I feel like I'm not enough for you to stay, and that thought eats at me every single day. By the time I finished, the paper was wrinkled from my tears, but I didn't feel any lighter. It just made me realize how much I wish I had a mom who cared enough to read it and do something about it. It's almost laughable how Mom expects me to respect Nathan, like he's some kind of replacement dad. She actually yelled at me the other day, telling me I need to show some respect for my new father. My new father? As if he could ever be that. Respect? For the guy who waltzed into our lives like we were some cheap prize he won? Respect for the man who broke our family apart while Dad was drowning in his own problems? I told her Nathan isn't my father and never will be, and that set her off even more. She screamed about how I need to grow up and accept reality. But this isn't reality, it's her mess, and she's forcing me to live in it. I just stood there biting my tongue, because I knew if I said anything else, she'd find a way to make it my fault too. I'm honestly sorry for using ChatGPT to write this. I found no other solution as I cried on my keyboard trying to write this from the heart. It might not have the raw human emotion, but it describes the situation perfectly. Again, sorry. OP is not an AH. Rather, his mom is AF for belittling his concerns and giving no attention to OP's emotional needs and focusing on her new yet toxic relationship. The worst thing is that she is compelling OP to call his new partner father. All this is not justified. As for scores, I would rate OP's mom 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from anon_eek_mouse, AITA. For asking my man for more passion? Been together 7 years. Both work full-time jobs, plus OT. I work nights, he works days. We get 2 days off together every other week, but 80% of the time he goes in for OT. This man grinds so hard, and I am always appreciative of his hard work. We lost our cat in earlier this year, and it destroyed us for months, and I reevaluated my entire life. We are now back into our normal routines for 3 months now, but a few things have changed. I am pushing through my depression and putting my self-care first. I am also prioritizing expressing my creativity, as well as reorganizing our home and maintaining the house better. I work from home, 45 hours a week, so I have taken the entire house as my responsibility. His only tasks are to take the trash when he leaves for work and to take care of our cat's litter boxes and give them breakfast. I have been feeling more myself, and I am very happy and feeling very motivated and passionate about my life. But he has been lacking drive, passion, excitement. I keep trying to talk to him about this, but every time he gets defensive and upset. I asked him to buy me flowers for my birthday months ago, but he didn't. I mentioned how surprise flowers would be nice to brighten up the room, but nothing. I sent him a video of a girl getting spooky flowers for Halloween and messaged how I would love something like that, but no. I can't remember the last time he got me flowers, but it's beginning to sting. Granted, he did take me to the show I wanted to see for my birthday. He carved pumpkins and did a photo shoot worth me for Halloween. Both of these events were fully planned and coordinated by me. But when I ask for some romance, for him to surprise me with a date or flowers, he acts like I am putting him down for not doing those things. But I swear I'm not. I literally said, I would love it if. I hate that I have to ask. But I hate even more that when I do ask, I'm answered with somehow, I am making him feel bad. This is the man I want to marry, have kids with, build a business with, enjoy life and grow old with, become our best selves with. I get being in a funk, but that's what happened to my dad. One day, he just stopped doing what he was passionate about and became this bitter, angry, sad little man. I don't want that for him, or my man, or anyone for that matter. How the am I supposed to motivate him or express my feelings if I am constantly being met with defensiveness or anger? And somehow, he always finds a way to turn it into my fault. I'm just so tired of being fed words and sorry and not seeing any real change. I'm exhausted and need advice. My current plan is to just give up talking about it entirely and live my own life, still with him, just minding my business, and hope that maybe he comes around and appreciates me the way he says he do. Gotta be honest, I find it pretty hard to want to have when he can't seem to find time to even pick me flowers. I feel like this issue would be solved if he would just stop being in his own head all the time and tried being a little more passionate about our life together. But I guess I get to be that woman who has to wait around and hope he decides to do something as simple as buy me a flower. That's right, a single flower, because I don't need a dozen roses or a giant bouquet. If he walked outside and saw a dandelion and picked it just for me, I would swoon. I know I would love it because he has done it before. Just picked wildflowers, once a single violet, and I still have them preserved. I'm so tired of this imbalance between us. Why can't he get excited and enjoy and be grateful for our life? Why can't he show me he cares about me? Am I for even writing this post? I am lost and don't know what else to do. It's the little things for me, like when I make him his favorite foods, pack his lunch, fold his laundry, take videos and pictures of him. I have to constantly ask him to do the same for me. Ask how his day is, get excited when he comes home, initiate sensual touch. I feel like I'm always thinking of him, but I don't feel it's reciprocated the same anymore. For over 2 years it's been like this. He used to be obsessed with me, absolutely madly in love, would do anything for me. But now it feels like he takes me for granted. Like it doesn't matter because in the end, I will always love him. I don't know what to do. Pretty sure this post is just a way for me to vent anonymously because I have no friends or family I can't talk to about this. Mainly because I know that will be being negative energy, and I want to resolve this with a positive outcome. Ideally, if he woke up on time instead of ignoring his alarm for 3 hours straight tomorrow morning, I would take that as a W. If he texted me, "Good morning, beautiful," tomorrow when he got to work, I go to bed at 7 a.m. when he is supposed to wake up, and I have asked for him to text me good morning so I have something to wake up to, but he never does. I would take that as a sign he is willing to try harder. If he brought me home one of those pens with a plastic flower taped to it, I would literally suck his minimal effort. That's all I'm asking for. OP is not the AH for expressing her legitimate feelings about unmet emotional needs and seeking minimal effort from their partner. It's not unreasonable to desire passion and reciprocity in a relationship, especially when they're already contributing significantly to it. As for scores, I would rate OP's partner 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from Apart Investigator 569. AITA for having boundaries with my toxic sister even though she now has foster children. I, 31F, am a teacher. This is important to note because I am considered a mandatory reporter and can get into legal trouble if I am found to have knowledge about situations regarding child abuse or children in an unsafe situation. For background information, my sister 39F is mentally ill. We know that for sure, but the doctors change her diagnosis regularly. Regardless of her mental illness, she refuses to actually change or get better for the sake of being a better person to her family. She is a liar and a manipulator. We have heard her lie to her therapist about her issues. She was doing teletherapy near us to make it seem like she is doing fine, when in fact she was buying alcohol while on meds to prevent her from drinking alcohol. She used to regularly leave her huge dog unattended in a studio apartment while she went out drinking for over 24 HRS. She makes every situation about her and tries to get a reaction out of those around her, even our parents, who spent thousands of dollars to bring her to live with them, and her neglected dog after her husband stole thousands from them. The thing I am attempting to say here is, she has consistently hurt her family, who has always gone above and beyond to help her, only for her to turn around and insult, berate, or make use uncomfortable on purpose. My sister has had a few boyfriends since moving to our town and living with our parents, and all of them we have told her about their massive red flags. She ignores us, tells us that she is with them because they have large genitalia, and then when they break up, she comes to us for comfort. Last year, she got together with a man that after a month decided that they should get married. We were all a bit wary. He also had the same red flags as the others, but in person seemed genial. My sister asked my parents if he could move into her garage apartment. My parents said no, they didn't want him to start paying rent, realize she was who she was, and be stuck in a rental agreement. So, her and her BF's idea? Have him sleep over 6 by 7 days a week. Finally, they found a place together. At the beginning of summer, my sister asked my mom if she would be a reference for them to be foster parents. They firmly said no. My other sister, 37F, I'll call her Lily, and I were shocked. To be honest, this toxic woman made my life scary growing up, and the fact that she mentioned several times that she never wanted children and would never have children made this announcement appalling to us. We still think it is a play to impress her BF. Another thing to mention, they were supposed to get married 2024. They didn't. My sister didn't do what she needed to plan a wedding. Got herself ostracized by the wedding community in the area by posting unhinged reviews. Both my Lily and I made calls to the Child Protection Center here, and all I got back was that they would send my message to their case manager. Because the state is so desperate for foster families, they were approved. Lily and I were disgusted. Lily ranted to me, which built my anger up too. They just got a placement. The first one that fell through, my sister claimed she had experience with my disability because I had the disability. Her experience, saying it was the most traumatizing time of her life, while turning around and yelling and berating me for being the favorite child because my parents treated me differently for having the disability. When my mom heard from her that she got a placement, she cursed out loud. So, my sister knows we don't support her, yet continues to act like we want to hear about everything that is going on with the process. She even quit her part-time job, which makes no sense because the girls have government-funded daycare. Now comes the real problem. I rent the bottom floor of my parents' house. They have said before that with my dad getting older, they can't afford for me to move out. And with my disability, it does make it easier to live with someone who can make sure I didn't have a seizure. Lily's birthday was recently, and I have made the decision to distance myself from my sister. I cannot play nice with her, especially after hearing how he treated Lily's husband and what I heard him say about my dad. Apparently, he is not so nice. My mom invited her to Lily's birthday without asking Lily. Lily didn't want her coming. I know myself, and I know I cannot be around someone without telling the truth, so the party was not fun for me. But my mom not even asking Lily, even after learning that my sister wasn't invited to Lily's children's birthday, is how my mother is treating all of our boundaries regarding my sister. When my sister moved out because I had told my dad I couldn't live with her anymore, and constantly told me that she had moved out and I didn't need to see her anymore. With the kids, because she can't handle them during the weekend, and because she wants to come talk to my mom about fostering. Even though my mom made it clear she didn't support her decision, she is continuing to show up. I have told my mom that it feels like she is choosing her oldest daughter over me by continuing to show support by talking about fostering with her around me and allowing her to play pretend. But my mom doesn't seem to care about my feelings. It came to a boil today when I found out she came over again, but this time with her foster kids. This might be where I am I refused to go inside. I know it wasn't the kids, because I didn't even know if she had the kids when I turned around and left. But everyone seems to think it was, and is pissed at me. To me, it was bad enough that she was over again. But now, she is bringing over the kids she can't handle and shoving them on my mom, who to be honest can't even handle Lily's kids. I went to house sit for Lily and refused to come home until she left. I came home to find that they let them play in my apartment. Yes, that is where Lily's kids' toys are. But there was no thought of me, if I was okay with it, because my senior cat has a disease that can kill him if he gets too stressed. My dad understands, but won't stand up to my mom, and when I told my mom my feelings and that I was thinking of going low to no contact with her, she was very blasé about it, and didn't even ask for us to go have a discussion about it. So, I texted Lily. She then berates me for wanting to move out and live on my own because I should let these girls have a family. I told her, it wasn't about the girls, it was about my sister. I was surprised at her vehemence of supporting my sister, so the girls have a family, because Lily had even stronger opinions about my sister being a foster parent, since she was more traumatized by my sister growing up. So now, by not wanting to be around my toxic sister and for having boundaries, I am TA. Am I really? A bit of extra information that shows why I think it will go south and why I can't be caught on her side due to legal reasons. My sister already broke HIPAA laws by telling my mom the disease one of her kids has. Then she broke confidentiality laws by telling us the names and information that of the former foster parents, as well as the fact that they had foster kids while their license was expired. She even told us the name of a foster child she never even got. OP is not the AH for setting boundaries with her sister, especially given her toxic behavior in the past. OP is protecting her own mental health and well-being, which is important in these circumstances. As for scores, I would rate OP sister 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.